Hello, is this thing on?
Do you think they can hear us?
Nah. Let's say it again. Hi, and welcome to the Gritty Nurse Podcast, an unfiltered discussion related to health and healthcare. My name is Amy,
And my name is Sarah.
and we are your podcast hosts.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon, or any other podcast listening platform, don't forget to subscribe so you can get updates to when we have our latest episodes. Also, don't forget to rate and review us.
And if you like what you're hearing and you love our advocacy work, don't forget to go to www.grittynurse.com and click on the donate button.
As little as $1 or $2 a month for a total of $12 a year will help us with our monthly podcast costs, such as website hosting, our hosting platform,
audio equipment, and the time and energy it takes us to put out good quality episodes. We thank you and we appreciate you. Hi, and welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited that we have another week where we're flying solo. Just me and Sarah today on this episode. And I believe it'll be another treat. We're trying to keep things light. We don't want to talk about COVID too much. We know how laborious it is and how stressed out everyone is. But we're gonna try to bring you something a little bit lighthearted. So, Sarah, what are we talking about today?
we are going to be talking about the break room. I think this is something that will apply to almost everyone listening. So, we're going to just talk about some of our personal stories, some funny stories, some things I think that nurses will definitely relate to. And, we just want to have fun with this and see, what kind of stories we come up with because I have no idea actually what Amy is going to share. And I don't think she knows what I'm going to share.
Okay, Sarah, why don't you just get into it?
Okay, so I thought we could start by talking about how the break room is really a social hub for nurses. So we know that, of course, there's the nursing station when you're on the unit, but there are lots of things happening. Patients are around, families are around, physicians, managers are around. So you really have to watch what you're saying. And of course, you're at work, so you have to be focused on work. But the break room, I feel like, is somewhere that you can really let loose, kick your feet up, say what's on your mind or not, just somewhere to really decompress where you're away from the busyness of the unit and everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with all of that. And I think it's also kind of this safe space. It's that safe hub where, you can go and you can talk about some of the things that are stressing you out, whether it's related to the day, your family, life, like any of that. And I think I took solace in going to the break room. And yeah, it was kind of like a hideaway space, a little bit different than the bathroom because the bathroom obviously affords you much more privacy. But again, going to that break room, you're just like, like finally, like it was like a little piece of home, really, to kind of, recenter yourself, get yourself ready to go back and finish the next how many hours of your shift.
Yeah, and I've seen the inside of many different break rooms. So I think it really varies depending on where you work. I've been working in places where the break room is literally a converted patient room. So it's super small. It's not very well furnished. It's kind of like just a mishmash of whatever's left over on the unit that makes up the furniture in there. And I've been in other places where it really is a nice oasis. Like there's a nice TV, there's all the appliances, everything you could look for. It's color coordinated. So I think it really varies. And I also think that the break room sort of reflects your organization's view on how they value the staff, like whether they actually put you in a nice place or whether they stick you in a corner.
Huh. Well, I was gonna say, I was like, well, that is bold, that is strong, because like I haven't been in any stellar like I'd say, break rooms. I think I've been in a couple that have been much more roomier. But most of the break rooms I have experienced have been pretty drab,
Yeah.
and pretty standard. They might have like one love seat in there, and maybe they'll have like, one recliner, and for the most part there are virtually no windows in the break room. I think one of the hospitals we worked at had windows, and the nurses ended up kind of like taping it all over anyways because obviously they use the break room as slash, their nighttime sleep room as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I mean, I just think, I don't know, I think it just depended on who, like, nurses are inventive and they made this space, even though it was crappy and drab, they always made it kind of welcoming and a really cool place to be.
Yeah, and there's always stuff on the walls, if it's somebody's baby shower or someone's having a get together, that kind of social stuff always stays in the break room. And then depending on the unit, sometimes there's stuff that like they want you to know, like new policies or whatever. So they put those updates there because they know everybody looks there. Like everyone goes to the locker room, but people tend to spend more time in the break room and probably would read things that are up on the wall or the bulletin board or even the fridge. I've seen lots of stuff on the fridge.
Yeah, see, that's where I think I would draw the line, and this is just my perspective, where I think the break room should be free of, that kind of stuff. Like, I think there's lots of different places where hospitals can place information related to learning or education or, something that might be happening on the unit. I just feel like the break room is not that it shouldn't be that space. Like, it, what I've used to see in break rooms where nurses would post, like, there's a social event and, sign up for a social event, or, we're having a potluck. Again, this is all, way in the past, but, put what food you're bringing for the potluck day or whatever, right? But I just feel that that space should be devoid of having anything that really has to do with patient care or education. I just feel like
I don't know. Like I am guilty of that. Like when I was an educator, I used to stick that kind of stuff up in the break room, like not to take over the whole wall, but there would be like a little bulletin board and there's a section for like educational updates. So I would always stick it there. That's just what I'm used to. And even when I was a staff nurse, there was always that kind of stuff floating around. So for me, I mean, like, I think it just depends on what unit you work on, but I'm used to that aspect. So it's just what you make of it. I don't think there's any rule either way, but like you said, it's just, some people just really want their space away from the unit and other people, they don't really care, to be honest. So, but one thing I did want to mention though is I think there definitely needs to be a separation between management and staff in the break room. So when you're in the break room eating your lunch, you definitely don't want your manager popping in, right? Like you kind of need that separation there.
no, I hear you on that. And it kind of brings me back to when I was an educator, if I felt comfortable eating in the break room. And I have to say, for the most part, I actually did. And I think that's just because of the relationship I built with the staff, right? And maybe it's also just my mentality that if I was in the break room, it was more to shoot the shit versus like talk about policy, or, like, I found that was a place that you caught up in, that you got to know, you know, about nurses' lives, about their families, about, what makes them tick, or, I just really tried to avoid I guess any of that, like, work related stuff while I was in there, cuz I guess I remember how it felt when, I was in the break room and I was approached by, let's say it was an educator about something to do with my shift or whatever. I'm like, okay, like, you're now taking away time from me trying to decompress. And now you're kind of bringing that type of energy. But I mean, I think, like you said, everyone's flow is a little bit different. But I always felt very welcomed in the break room. Like, what was your experience like?
I think that I was sort of like that too. It's interesting, right? Because when you're in the break room, you're there to heat up your food or eat, or sometimes well, actually, to be honest, I'd be really busy a lot of the time. So I only had time to go into the break room just to heat up my food. But even in those few minutes, it was nice just to talk about something that wasn't work related, for staff to know that I wasn't always there to, talk about something they hadn't done or something they needed to do, that I could get to know them as people. And that way we kind of forged a bond that was beyond the educator nurse relationship. So I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed seeing what people do in the break room. So there are people that they really want to socialize. Some people go there to vent. Other people, they're really quiet, they want to watch a video on their phone, or they've got like knitting that they're doing, or a book that they want to read. So it's just interesting to see what people do with their precious minutes off.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, maybe we can kind of get into like what we did to like during our time. And one of the things that I think I've mastered, and I think my husband would agree, is the nurse power nap, which
Oh,
is
yes. I was
having
gonna
the
say.
ability to sleep on a dime for like 15 minutes or 5 minutes or 7 minutes, whatever time I might have allotted, and wake up and be refreshed. So I remember actually when I was being preceptored, a nurse kind of telling me like, you got to learn how to, like, have a quick nap and then go back out there, and I thought it was a joke. And I remember going into the break room with her, and she did not mess around. Like, she ate her lunch, and then all of it, like, of course, the blankets and pillows came out of nowhere. I'm like, where did they even get this stuff? It's just like all of a sudden she had like blankets and pillows, and she's like, I'm going to sleep. Like, don't bother me. And I was like, okay. And I went to warm my food up. I turned around and this nurse was gone. I was like, "Oh my god!" She's fully snoring like out, and I thought it was a joke. And this particular nurse is kind of like a jokester and prankster. So I remember kind of like poking her, like putting my fingers under her. She was gone. And I was like, "Oh my god, damn, like she's fully asleep." So I finally, like, I ate my lunch, and just like clockwork, her alarm went off and she's like, "Refresh, time to go." I'm like, this is insane. But I learned that skill as well. So my husband says I'm like a Navy SEAL. We could be in the car. I'm like, I just need like 5 minutes. He's like, are you serious? I can close my eyes, and 5 minutes later, I feel like a brand new person. He's like, how do you fall asleep so fast? But I think it's just, we have to learn. It's like another learned skill to make sure that you can get through the day. Because sometimes it's just so much information overload in terms of the things that you might have to do. And then with being in obstetrics, it can be very fast paced and very, 1 minute you could be chill, and the next minute you're like, oh my god, it's a cord prolapse, and you're going right into like 110 degrees or whatever, right? So I mean, I can say now, proudly, I have mastered the 5 minute nap.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I have actually never seen you do this nap, but I believe you. And I feel like this is actually a life skill when you become a parent. Like, I think that really actually helped me with my kids because when you're so sleep deprived and you don't get any sleep, and it's like, everyone says sleep when the baby sleeps. I actually took that to heart, and I would sleep when my baby slept, those, periods during the day or whatever. And I attribute that to being able to work nights and taking naps, but also being able to function on very little sleep. I think that when I worked nights, that was always me. I was sleep deprived, and that really helped me. When I was in the break room, though, I used to take these power naps, and I always needed some white noise. So it would be a show like Dr. Phil or something. Someone always had a show on that I didn't like, and I would just fall asleep because I'm not interested. It was just, be white noise. And then I'd either set an alarm, or on one of the units I worked on, we always carried our phones with us. So I'd be woken up by the phone, like a patient calling because they needed something. And then I would spring up into action. But sometimes when you wake up too fast, it's like you feel all disoriented. And like for me, my heart would be pounding because I'd like leap out of the chair and I'm like, oh, okay, I feel dizzy. I just need a minute.
Yeah, that was nice. So that was nights for me when it's like, all right, you're on first break, you get to sleep from 12 to 3 or whatever the case may be. And then like you hear that banging, and you're just like, holy crap. And then I remember being so disoriented. So I totally get, like, sometimes I woke up, I'm like, where am I? I'm like, oh my god, I'm actually at work. Like, I gotta figure this out. But yeah, like, I totally the same thing. And it's kind of funny that you brought up about like what's on TV. And my experience, it's always like HGTV, or it's like some home
Yeah.
improvement show, or like some cooking show. Oh, I remember always wanting to change the channel, but I was so scared of the senior nurses that if I did, then I'd be like ousted. So I just kind of was like, yeah, I like home and garden. It's like, I don't have a home.
No, it's like honestly, like it's always the least offensive stuff you could watch. Like it's never the news, right? It's always some talk show or gardening or cooking, and everyone's afraid to change the channel because no one wants to offend anyone. And there's always that one nurse or two nurses that is like, mm-hmm, that's my show. And I'm gonna come on break at 2 o'clock and it better be on.
Oh my
And
goodness.
if
No,
it's not on, like just go, just don't even be part of that.
yeah, no, I hear you. Like, I remember changing the channel once, and I think I was actually an educator at the time, and that was like completely my bad. Like, it didn't seem like anybody was watching it, but I was like, oh, I want to see something on like CB24, and I turned it to the news, and all everyone's heads like flipped around, and I was like, um, Yeah, I'll like put that back. And I was just like, oh my god.
I think there was actually like a big sign that said do not turn off the TV because you actually can't turn it back on or something. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do remember seeing that sign too. Yeah.
And it would be blaring at all hours. Like, what did people do at nights? They must have at least muted it.
Probably, but I mean, I think the break room wasn't the only place people. Anyways, I won't get into that. The other piece that I kind of want to bring in about the break room is maybe some of these unwritten rules about who can and can't be in there. So,
Mhm.
clinical students, I'll just throw that out. Can they be in the break room? Should they be in the break room? What are your thoughts?
I think so. Like in my experience, the clinical students were in the break room. So once in a while, I'd see them. If it was a really large group, so if it was anywhere between 8 to 10, I'd probably say they should eat somewhere else, like the cafeteria. But if it's like one or two students that are doing their final placement, I don't see any problem with them coming to the break room and getting to know the culture and following their preceptor around.
No, absolutely. I agree with that.
Okay. Was there another one that you were thinking of?
Oh, I was gonna just say that I actually remember being kicked out of the break room, and this was
What?
and no, but this was under the same premise of like it was actually a clinical group. Our preceptor was like, "Oh yeah, you guys can go eat in here, whatever." And I remember we all piled in. There was I think it was like second year, and we all piled into the break room. We're all laughing, having a good time, and like three of the staff nurses came in. They're like, "You guys just can't be here," and I was just like,
Whoa.
we all got up quick and just left. But I mean, of course, I think there could have been a better way to say that. Yeah, like I think clinical students, like you said, should be welcome to the space. But again, I think they shouldn't just like overwhelmingly take over the space. Just being mindful that for the most part, a clinical student they might be in and out in 7 hours or even less, and that nurse might be there for the full 12. So
I think it just depends on the space. Like most break rooms are pretty small, so if it's a large group, I think you need to be aware of how much space you're taking up in the break room. Like if you're not leaving any seats for the staff nurses that work there, then that's going to be a problem. Or if you're all hogging the microwave and someone's like waiting to heat up their food, I think that's a problem too. But I never recall being kicked out of a break room ever. I hope that's just a one-off. Like I don't know if that's really I don't really think that's common. At least I hope it's not.
it might be the culture of the organization. But
Mhm.
anyways, I digress.
Mhm.
Um, so we already kind of mentioned managers and educators kind of. What about medical learners? So what about residents?
I think we talked about this before, and I think they absolutely should be allowed now that I know that they actually don't have a place to eat if they don't eat in the break room.
Wah wah wah.
However, I will say that in my experience, I've not seen medical students eat in the break room, like at least the time I've been a nurse. And I worked in a teaching hospital that had constant medical students. And I kind of wonder now where they ate because they didn't eat in our break room. And I don't know why. Like, it wasn't that they weren't welcome, they just didn't eat in our break room.
Yeah, like I mean, in my own experience too, it was very rare to see like a medical student actually eating in the break room. But I have on the odd occasion have seen physicians eating in the break room. And for me that was like a full new thing. I remember why thinking to myself, like, why am I so apprehensive of this happening? And it was kind of like, well, in 10 years of my career, I'd never seen like a physician come and eat with other nurses. So this particular physician, I remember when he came in and did it, I was just kind of like I was sitting there super shocked, like, oh my god, he's like still here. And but it was actually pleasant. Like I mean, I think that was also another opportunity to team build, to learn something different. Because I think I would say, that's where you might also get to ask questions about something that you might have not known, or you might have had no, I don't want to say an assumption, but you might have had some questions about something that might be, I'm not saying always an ideal space to bring it up, but like let's say the conversation started. I think that's fair. And I think also you just get a different perspective and a different take having that type of relationship. And I think I thought it was pretty cool.
Mhm, mhm. So, okay, what's your take on the fridge situation? I wanna know what you think about the fridge in general, and, like, did you ever have enough space for your lunch, and how did that work?
Well, the fridge always every time I got to the fridge for whatever reason, it always looked like Jenga, right? Like you pull something out, something might fall over, or there might be some like old sandwiches in there that have been there for God knows how long. I always used to have to put my food in like, the storage containers for where you put like vegetables and fruits.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The
Always used to
side.
find space, but other than that, like, it's always been a crap show. It's always, like, the worst white, boring fridge that you've ever seen, and it just like, it's always about capacity. Capacity is always an issue.
I saw this meme online recently, and it was like, it was a picture of the fridge, and you know how everybody has those lunch purses that they bring, like
Yes.
especially women. There's these lunch purses that are giant ass. They are so big. They take up so much space, and some people like were ridiculous. Like they had these things that almost looked like coolers, and they
Yeah.
would shove it into the fridge, and it's like actually probably five people could have fit their lunch in the space that your one cooler is taking up. And I used to get so annoyed because, like you, I couldn't fit my lunch. So I would take out the containers just of the stuff that needed to be refrigerated. And I look in other people's bags when they open them, and there's like, I'm not joking, like half a loaf of bread. Um, like I'm like, are you literally bringing your kitchen with you? Like, can you not put this into smaller containers? So, like, literally half a loaf of bread, a jar of peanut butter, and they would just open it and like take a little bit and put it on the bread. There would be like a bag of carrots in there and like a water bottle. And I'm like, what part of that actually needed to be refrigerated? And why can't I fit my lunch in there? It's because of you. But then, of course, I couldn't say anything because she was a senior nurse.
Oh, dear.
So I just learned to like take out like stuff that was like meaty or like dairy and take those little containers and put them in like the side door wherever I could fit it. And then I always had this urge to throw out food that smelled bad, but
Oh
then
my god, that was
often
always
I
so
just
good.
didn't. And like usually once a week, somebody would get really mad and just like purge everything. And then they would send off an email or like a note that, on Friday, everything's going in the garbage. If you don't clean it before then, like it's gone.
No, I totally hear you. It is true. People sometimes eat other people's lunch. I don't really know what's up with that.
No. Have you
But I've
seen
heard it
that?
happen on many occasions where someone's like, "Yeah, like, someone ate my lunch or someone drank my drink," or I'm like, "What is like, why would anybody do that?" But supposedly it happens. Like, I have no idea if it's nurses to nurses or something bizarre is going on. But yes, I have heard food going missing.
Okay, is there any chance that someone just thought it was their food, or do you think people just eat other people's food?
I don't know. It's just a
Mm.
bizarre thing. Like, I would never, ever eat someone else's food. Like, I'm pretty sure that I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't make this. This doesn't belong to me." I would just be like, I'm gonna eat it now." That's just gross. I don't know. I wouldn't do that to somebody.
I think the worst thing though is when people get takeout and then like it's in those styrofoam containers and then you really don't know whose is whose if you don't write your name down and then people just leave it there and they forget or they just I don't know, it gets shoved to the back and that's the stuff that always ends up going rotten and driving people bananas.
Yeah, sorry. I have fallen victim to that where I've like left pasta in the fridge for like how many days, and I'm like, "What? Did I leave my container there?" And then like I came back from my 5 off, and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's growing mold." Like, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so I have actually done that.
How about passive aggressive notes about cleaning up after yourself or washing your dishes?
You know what? I think that's perfectly fine, and I wouldn't even make it passively aggressive. I'd be like, "You should clean up after yourself." Like, it's so I used to see it all the time, and maybe that's just a cultural thing where, like, if the sink has nothing in it, like, wash it out. Or if you use a plate, you use some cutlery, wash it and put it away. But I remember, like, seeing people like load dishes in and just be like, "Oh yeah, housekeeping will clean it."
I
Excuse
know, that was so wrong. I
what
couldn't
do you mean
believe it.
housekeeping will clean it? That's your mess. You clean it up yourself. But I there was a hospital that, I think we both worked at. They had some very strict rules about making sure that you cleaned up after yourself, and of course, they did have those, like you said, passive aggressive notes, but you know what? You should clean up after yourself. You shouldn't leave that mess for someone else to do it. Like, I mean, I get it if, let's say you're in a rush or you were eating and then you had to just throw everything in, fine, right? But to just do it intentionally, I think that's not cool.
I think you're a little bit on the extreme side because you came to my house recently and we had made you dinner and you insisted on washing the dishes. and you told me it was like
It is a cultural
you said
thing.
it was like a West Indian thing, I'm not sure about that, but I let you, and maybe I shouldn't have. I let you do the dishes at my house.
That's okay. I mean, I wouldn't have offered if I didn't think it was something that, like, I mean, I just feel that, as a host, you hosted us, you had us there for dinner. The least I could do is help, with the cleanup and putting food away. I think that's just the right thing to do, but that's just me. I'm bizarre.
Now I feel indebted to that I need to come over and wash your dishes.
Oh no, no, you don't have to do that. It's not.
You know what I've always noticed is like the cupboards are just they're always like filled with the most random crap. There's like decorations for Christmas, for like Halloween. It's like all shoved in there and random like stuff from patient trays like the cutlery, the plastic cutlery and like stuff from someone's retirement 5 years ago. This most random stuff ends up in there.
That's true. And you know what? The other thing that I do remember seeing, this was before we actually had like different spaces where, sometimes like patient food got put into the fridge as well. And I kind of remember they used to have these, like, they'd put the like orange juice, like the little, the little orange juice or little apple juice, like let's say a patient needed a meal,
Yep.
they'd have some of those in the fridge as well. And I remember like, oh no, I didn't bring lunch. And I was like,
Mhm.
the sandwich looks pretty tempting. And I mean, I don't think I'd be the first nurse to steal a turkey sandwich.
I do that all the time, okay?
Okay.
Let's be real. I would look at the expiry date though. I would eat the one that was the oldest to make myself feel better.
Okay.
And I'd be
Okay.
like, "Does anybody really want this egg sandwich that's going bad tomorrow?" No.
Probably not. And I mean, I'd imagine that there was so much waste too, right? That they ended up throwing things away. And you know me about that too. It's just like, oh my gosh, don't waste this food.
No, that's me, that's me. I'm on the same page as you, and I think when you work in obstetrics, right, usually the patients are healthy, they're young, they don't even want the patient or they don't even want the hospital food. They wanna go and, like, get takeout, but then they're still, like, getting a meal, right? So as long as they're there, they're just gonna keep, like, not eating their food, and I feel like someone should eat it, and, if they're not gonna eat it, it's just gonna go in the garbage.
That's true. No,
Yeah.
we're the same there.
But I think that now with infection control, I don't think you're actually allowed to keep patient food in the same fridge as staff food.
No, that's changed quite a bit. Typically, there's like a fridge on the unit somewhere that they'll keep their stuff now.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that that's good because I remember all sorts of weird things happening. So it's just, and maybe that's sometimes where people's lunches went. Maybe it was a patient who was hungry and it was like, oh, this looks really delicious. I'm gonna eat this.
I hope not.
Hopefully not, right? Here's my last question that I have, at least. Is there anything off limits in the break room, or is everything fair game?
You mean in terms of like what we talk about or things that we do?
Yeah, in terms of like what we talk about.
Well, I mean, I don't think you should talk about patient sensitive information because I mean, you always want to keep that within the circle of care. I don't know. I've never walked into a break room and been part of a heated discussion about politics or religion, but I wouldn't say that's off limits either.
That's yeah. I've never done that either, but I have walked in where people have had heated conversations, and I was kind of like, "Whoa, what's going on?" But I feel like, again, that space it's a safe space, right? Like I've come in where I've heard people talking about, and it was just bizarre how this all kind of came out, where someone was talking about their spouse cheating on them. I'm like, whoa, that took a turn, that conversation. Or, life events, or, even just people asking questions about parenting. And I feel again, it's a really good space for people to connect and to share, what they are beyond just, sorry, what they are beyond a nurse working on a shift that particular day. So I mean, like I said, it's a cool space to be in. And I think that I wish that hospitals made them a little bit more nurse friendly in terms of, the layout, the design. I think there's much that is lacking, but who knows? Like, I maybe we talk about it in this episode and people will be like, "Hey, yeah, we should redesign this place."
Right. And if you first start on a unit, I would just ask, what is the culture around night shifts and the break room? Because don't make the mistake that I made and go and heat up your meal and like eat your meal in the break room at night when somebody's sleeping, because that's a big no no. But you wouldn't know that unless you ask.
I think one of the things that I kind of quickly learned is if people are sleeping, just be, be sensitive, right? And be cognizant that, maybe that person's had a hard morning shift or, maybe something happened at home or whatever. And just be, respectful. So, like, I wouldn't go in and, like, start blaring my music or turning on the microwave. Maybe I'll go warm my food up downstairs. But the other thing that I would like to say, and maybe this is would be surprising to people, is I'm actually a little bit of a hermit when it comes to that. Like, I kind of liked going to the break room when there was, maybe one other person in there, or if it was empty. That was kind of my jam. I just felt like I needed to decompress cuz like I felt that, when I'm out there on the nursing unit, I can get all that talking in and do what I need to do, but I felt that also I just wanted quiet.
Yeah, totally. I kind of was the same way, but I think that some people are really chatty and you just have to take their lead. Like, especially if you're new on the unit, just kind of observe, just step back and observe and see what the general vibe is in the break room before you kind of decide you want to, strike up a conversation or anything like that, or, play anything that makes noise, any music at
Yeah,
all.
for sure. No, I rarely heard anybody go in and play music, but I have seen people go in and do full on like 30-minute conversations on their phone.
Well, I mean, I used to work on the unit where there were people that didn't like each other, right? And if one of them saw the other in the break room, they would just turn right around, either take their break at a different time or find somewhere else to eat.
Oh
Like
goodness.
they would see each other and be like, "Nope, not doing that today."
Oh dear. I mean, I think that's so childish. But anyways, that's just my take again. I think that, when it comes to relationships, you should always try to find what's the middle ground and how you can kind of dissolve situations. It's just toxic for you, it's toxic for the other person. And at the end of the day, we want to see good patient outcomes. So, and we have to be a team. So,
And really, we need to recharge our batteries, use that precious time that you have down to, get back out there, re energize, and provide great care.
absolutely, I agree.